So I'm here this morning, as has been said, to talk a little bit about video, about marketing, and about really why, now is the time to be thinking about video as a really integral part of your marketing mix. And the good news is, well, there's two bits of good news. One is that video is unbelievably powerful for getting your messages out there, sharing your stories, driving the sorts of behavior that you want from your customers and your communities. But the other piece of really good news is that video is sort of easier than ever. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of why that is and the things you can now do with video, even if you find it quite intimidating, you don't have a lot of experience of using video as part of your marketing. So let's get started then. This is me. As mentioned, I'm the Director of Community Engagement for Vimeo. My background is in creative storytelling and journalism. That's sort of where I started out life before I entered the tech industry. And what I think has been a really interesting shift is that, when you work in journalism or in content creation, you're obsessed with how you can sort of capture people's imagination and keep them interested in what you're talking about. And obviously, that's a very similar thing that a lot of marketing is trying to do. So what you're seeing increasingly, I think, is more and more people making the sorts of move that I did, starting off in journalism and then moving into marketing, especially as marketing embraces more content and more storytelling, which I'm sure, a lot of you are aware of, and I'm sure a lot of you are doing as well. A little bit about Vimeo. Vimeo started out life in the early 2000s as a site for video professionals, right? For people to put up their videos online, sort of like a bit of we were often referred to as sort of hipster competitor to YouTube. We don't think of ourselves like that, but that's sort of where Vimeo started out life. But what's happened, and you can see it on this slide, right, is that our whole way that video works and the role video plays, in technology and in society and in culture really has changed over the past few years. So, in the 20th century, video was art and entertainment, and it was only a few, very sort of rich, very Hollywood people who were able to make, they were making films, it was the cinema, and that's what video production meant. It wasn't a medium that was particularly open to lots of people. Then what happened in the early 2000s was obviously video became democratized, and particularly what this meant was social media and influencers and people who started to turn around to create and sort of publish video much more easily, much more quickly, and could build huge followings. This is a GIF in the middle here of Casey Neistat, who was sort of perhaps the YouTube influencer and has millions and millions of followers. And that was a real shift, because suddenly video went from being this thing that was only for a few people to suddenly being open to anyone really who could afford a camera and an internet service. But what's happened now is we've moved into a third phase, if you like, as video, because people like Casey, he's very technologically savvy, he's very creative, and so that was still, even though it was more democratized than the 20th century, video was still being used by a reasonably small group of people. But now what's happened is that video is suddenly available to all sorts of individuals, organizations, small businesses, big businesses, not-for-profits, teenagers. You're seeing video just explode as the sort of defining communication medium of our time. And so what this has done is opened up a whole load of opportunities for businesses to suddenly, rather than, thinking of video as a very expensive, very time-consuming thing that was really beyond the reach of most businesses, if we're being honest, suddenly that's changed. And suddenly what's happened is that video is available to sort of anyone who wants to use it. And the way Vimeo has shifted, like I said, when we started, we were a site for sort of creative filmmakers. And we still have that, we still have a huge community of people who put their latest documentary or animation on Vimeo. But what we now offer as well is a set of tools for small businesses, for big businesses, again, for not-for-profits, for all sorts of organizations, to be able to start, using lots more video as part of their marketing and communication strategies. And, we think this is a really exciting shift, that this medium, which, has always been so powerful and has always, really defined our culture. If you think about cinema and Hollywood and the movies, suddenly sort of the power of video being open to smaller businesses and smaller organizations, we think is a really exciting shift. And we want to help as many of those organizations as possible, embrace that and understand what role it can play for them. And so I guess that's sort of, in a nutshell, what I'm going to be talking about today. But first of all, let's drill into this idea again, a little bit of why video, because I think there's an important thing to say, which isn't talked an awful lot about when we think about marketing in 2021 and beyond. And it's this, right? As marketers, as businesses, as organizations, there has never been more opportunity to reach people, to connect with people. If you think about the rise of social media, the rise of obviously, websites, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Google, there's an unbelievable opportunity for organizations to get themselves in front of people who may be interested in what they have to say. So whether that's, if you're a editorial publication, it's getting in front of potential readers. If you're a business, that means getting in front of potential customers or consumers. And that's fantastic, right? That is a unbelievable change to the days, 50 years ago, where you had to take an ad out in the local paper or, put up a billboard on the side of a road. We have, almost an infinite amount of opportunity to reach the people we want to reach. However, the flip side of that is, because there are all these more opportunities to do that, because there are so many more, ways to reach a potential customer, whether that's on Facebook, Google, etc., the competition for people's attention has skyrocketed. And that's a really, important thing for anyone, I think, working in marketing to understand and to grapple with a little bit. So yes, on the one hand, it's easier to reach people, but we are now bombarded with messages, videos, images, audio, sort of almost from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. And so that's changed the landscape as well, to cut through the noise, to, put messages out there that A, reach the right people, and then B, resonate with those people, has become more difficult. And I think we don't talk about that maybe as marketers enough. We focus on all the opportunities, which are obviously great, but we don't talk necessarily about the fact that actually, trying to get people's attention. Attention is this super scarce resource, right? It's very precious. And I think that where video can come in, and why we should be talking about video, not as a sort of nice to have in your marketing mix, but really as something you have to be embracing, is because, we at Vimeo believe that video is the most powerful medium we have for human expression. So, to bring an idea to life, to grow a brand, to make a connection with someone, video is the way to do that. So when we talk about this, battle for people's attention that we're all, engaged in as modern marketers, the answer to the question, why video, is because, video has the best chance for you to capture the right people's attention. Video is the best way, we believe, to keep people's attention, to actually, keep them interested in what you're talking about and keep them engaged in what you're trying to say, but also to convert that attention. Obviously, as marketers, a lot of the time, we're not telling stories or putting messaging out there just for its own sake. We're trying to drive an action, whether that's a purchase or a sign up or an attendance of an event or something like that. So, we are really convinced that the best way to do that, to cut through the noise and to grab people's attention in the right way, is to use video. Now, you might say, well, of course you'd say that, you're a video marketing company. Absolutely fair. But this is backed up by data as well, right? So let's take the first plank of that, capturing people's attention. And I guess the best stats here are around social media. Social media has been taken over by video in recent years. The rise of TikTok is pretty unparalleled in the social media landscape. I think it was just announced recently that people are now watching more hours of content on TikTok than they are on YouTube. So that's a huge change for YouTube over the years. Instagram a few years ago said that they didn't want to be seen as a photo sharing app anymore. They actually wanted to be seen as a video app. So again, a huge shift for Instagram, a brand synonymous with square photographs, to actually say, hey, do you know what? video is the future for this company. And Twitter, right? You know, this is an example. This is from the Twitter business blog, that if you put a video in one of your tweets, that gets 10 times more engagement than tweets that don't have video. And that's a really, you know, when we talk about capturing people's attention, you can see the power of video. And if you are able to add, you know, a video into your Twitter strategy, for example, clearly the stats from Twitter show that you're going to much more likely to engage people and to bring them into your world and to, you know, get an opportunity to share your message and potentially, you know, convert somebody. So that's a really powerful thing in that, you know, capture people's attention bucket. This is the middle one. So this is about keeping people's attention. Capturing people's attention is really important, but you know, that's only part of the equation. The other parts of the equation is trying to keep people engaged with the messages that you're sharing to them. And again, video has been shown to do this. So in some tests that we've run with different customers, we found that video increases the time people spend on your website by around 88%. And I mean, that's, you know, that's a huge number. That's almost doubling the sort of average time people are spending. And again, that just shows you the power of video to draw people into your world, into your story, into your business, and to keep them engaged with what you want to say. But none of this really matters unless we talk about conversion, because like I say, a lot of marketing, or all marketing, is using storytelling and messaging to drive a certain behavior. But again, the stats here bear this out. You know, using video on your website has been shown to improve your conversion rate by around 80%. And so, you know, again, I'm going to say a few times in this presentation, video is moving from being a sort of a nice to have to a really have to have. And this is why, because you're going to be able to capture people's attention better, you're going to be able to keep people's attention better, but crucially, you're going to be able to convert them into whatever you're trying to do. There's also stats around sort of the value of people's average orders when you've got video on your site, and the drop-off rate. You know, there's obviously in sort of particularly e-commerce sites, there's a key metric, which is people going to buy something and then dropping off at the last minute. Again, sites with video, this has been shown to address that very common issue, I think, that lots of us have, or lots of businesses have, around trying to get people sort of over the line and spending money. Just before I dive in and talk about some of the key types of video that you might want to be thinking about as a business, I do want to have a quick word just about events. You're all here at an online event, so hopefully you are at least in part convinced about the power of online events and why they're important. They are important, and Vimeo is a big believer that, again, online events, which used to be the preserve of a few big rich companies, suddenly now this is available to almost every business that wants to run an online event, and that's very exciting. But this is a huge topic, and I don't have time in today's sort of presentation to go into this in depth. There are other Vimeo events that do this, and I can share some information about those later on. But just to sort of park that to say that, yes, events are really important, and perhaps in the Q&A, I'm happy to answer any questions specifically about sort of online events. But I don't have time to go into it because it's such a huge topic, and, you know, particularly post-COVID, online events has exploded. I think it's about twice as many are being run now as used to be run. So I'm not going to go in depth onto events. Instead, I want to talk about 4 types of video. Again, very sort of democratized, very accessible sorts of video that really any business sort of can be using if they're interested in bringing video into their mix, which, like I say, they should be. So the first one is a homepage video. This is probably the most common type of video we see, particularly small businesses using. And you know what a homepage video does: someone lands on your website, and it essentially is the first experience that potential customers are going to have with your business. And they're a very good way, I think, of creating an experience and starting to tell a story with a new customer in a way that resonates in a much deeper way than, say, just using images or text. I think a good way to think about it is the experience you have when you first walk into a shop. You know, the experience comes to life through lots of different things. The design of the shop, the way the goods are arranged, you know, the music, the smell, you know, all these sorts of things, the staff, you know, it creates a very immediate, very sort of human experience. And we think that video is like the closest way you can replicate that feeling in an online, digital environment. You can very quickly sort of bring to life, what your company is. Another good stat around this, though, is that obviously you want people to not only sort of engage with and listen to your story and find out about your business, but also sort of remember you and for that information to sink in. And what studies have found is that viewers retain about 95% of the information that they get from a short video, compared to a sort of comparable chunk of text where it's only 12%. So, not only is video, I think, much more creative and much more engaging as a way to introduce what your brand or your business is and what you do, people are actually much more likely to remember that as well. So again, thinking about those hard metrics and the reasons why video is such a powerful medium. This is an example of a brand who we've worked with before, Kinetics Cosmetics, and they have this really lovely, very short, right? Again, these don't have to be huge, long things. It's about 1 minute long. It's an introduction video. They're a skincare brand, and they started off, they've got a really interesting story. They sort of started off in the sort of scientific community in dermatology, moved into spas, and then they moved into selling their goods to consumers. And what they do in this video is that they sort of tell that story in a very efficient, a very engaging, a very nicely branded way. And, again, I think sometimes when we're thinking of video, we're thinking of these very high production, expensive, long things, but it's not, right? Video is open to everybody now, and the ability to be able to sort of paint a very compelling picture of who you are as a business very quickly is something that video offers and opens up to everybody. And again, the stats bear this out, right? 110% conversion rate with video for this brand, and the exit rate dropping by 53%. So again, not only does it look nice, not only does it feel really nice as a user or as a viewer, but actually it's having an effect on this company's bottom line, and it's bringing them in more money and helping them grow because they've sort of shifted from using images to using video. Second type of video that I think is important to talk about is a product video. Now, this isn't hugely dissimilar to the first type, but obviously instead of telling the story about a brand or an organization, a product video tells the story, as the name suggests, about one product. Again, usually very, very short. You're usually looking at something about 30 seconds and usually focused on one product. And these are, particularly good for social media. So, being able to push video content out onto Instagram or TikTok or Facebook and take a product and really bring it to life, again, in a way that I think images and text can't really do. So the example that we have for this is a brand called Hella Cocktail Company. They do sort of high-end like mixers and bitters and sodas and stuff. And they, they started using video during the pandemic. It wasn't something they necessarily had committed to massively before. But what they found, we have a tool called Vimeo Create. And like I said, Vimeo's mission is to make video accessible. And Vimeo Create is a tool where you can sort of take the images that you've already got and that kind of thing, and very easily sort of drag and drop it into a template. And it actually uses sort of AI to turn that into a video. It's a really, really clever bit of kit. And if anyone's interested, we can get you some access to Vimeo Create as well. But it's again, it's taking this idea of, if you've got lovely brand assets, you should be thinking about video, and we can make that happen for you. And I think the really key thing about this story is this quote that you can see on the slide here. This brand was doing about 6 videos a year. And now, because they've sort of embraced Vimeo Create and because they've found a way to unlock and make that a much quicker process, they're making about 6 videos a month. So again, going back to that slide about video becoming more and more accessible and more open to different types of organizations, that's a huge shift. Suddenly, if you're making 70 videos a year, the power that you have to drive the growth and the conversions and the attention grabbing that we're talking about has suddenly gone through the roof, really. And that's not beyond any small business. This business has about 5 people, I think, working there. So we're not talking about huge businesses who have big teams that can just concentrate on video. We're talking about basically any business that this is now available. Again, some stats that just show how they're embracing a video and how it's driven some of the key metrics that obviously help grow their business. Third type of video that I wanted to touch on is testimonial videos. Now, again, a lot of businesses will be very familiar with the idea of having testimonials on their website. And often this takes the case in the very simplest form. It's usually like a quote from a customer saying how fantastic the business was and how much they've enjoyed working with them. But I think that there is a version of one step up from that, which is sometimes a picture of the customer and the quote. But again, we think you can go one level beyond that. And actually what we see a lot of small businesses using video for is to take quotes from their customers and again, bring them to life in this way that really builds trust with their audience and draws them in to what people have to say about their brand. And again, that's a really exciting step forward, because as great as it is for, if I'm a small business owner, for me to tell you how fantastic my business is, if I can have real people who have used my business or my services and can tell you how great it is, that's much more powerful, right? Yeah, it's a very sort of basic marketing principle. And we think that by using video, and again, this doesn't mean you have to go off and interview people and, any sort of big, complicated production. All it means is you take the same assets you had before, whether that's, images, texts, quotes from different people, and you can just bring them to life in this very simple way that we're showing here. And this is just a short video to play. This is a skincare brand called Angela Caglia. It's a sort of very high-end skincare products, but she has a lot of customers who give her very glowing feedback. And this was just a small case study we made of her to tell her story about how she's using video a little bit.
I really wanted to get my brand known and out there, but I didn't have the resources to create videos. I'm so happy that we're able to work with Vimeo Create, to where we're able to easily create high production value videos to help get the message out about my brand. After running Vimeo Create ads, in 2 weeks, we saw a 79% increase in revenue. We also saw an online conversion rate increase by 50% and the spend 31%. Having the option now to create videos at home is a game changer.
And again, I think what that video does really nicely is it sort of brings together some of the key themes that I'm talking about. Angela's, it's not a huge business. It's not sort of lots of people dedicated to making video. It's the ability of a small team to make lots of video that then drives real business results. And that's the real game changer, right? That's why, again, as I keep saying, video is really something that you should be thinking about as a way to grow your business. Then the last type of video I just wanted to talk about, and again, this is a bit like the testimonial videos, where with testimonials, as we said, that's something that often works as text on a screen. But if you turn it into video, you can really drive a different level of engagement with your story. It's the same with FAQs, right? So oftentimes FAQs are text, they're frequently asked questions, and it's a bit on your website where you'll have some questions and have some answers. And the problem is there's usually quite a lot of them, so they end up being a big chunk of text, which is quite intimidating as a consumer. But again, we've seen small businesses experimenting by turning these into video, and basically sort of thinking about the key questions that often come up for their business and answering them in this way that feels very dynamic, very engaging, and much more sort of compelling than just having this big thing of text. Again, go back to the stat I said earlier about the amount of information that people retain from video compared to the amount of information they retain from text. And you sort of see why people are starting to embrace FAQ videos a lot. It's also a really nice thing, if people say tweet at you and have a question about something about your product or your business or your brand, you can respond with a video. So again, thinking about how well video performs on social media and how it's driving much more engagement in a social media space. That's a really fantastic thing to be able to do. So rather than send them to a section of the website, you can just send them to an FAQ video, and that is a really effective way of communicating with your customers. The example we've got for this is a company called California Wild. And it's a reasonably complex business, right? It's essentially what they do is that they allow you to order a selection of sort of plants and shrubs online, and then they get delivered to your house and you sort of plant them up and create your garden. It's really sustainable, really sort of unusual, plants and like I say, shrubs and things, and an ability for you to have a much more interesting garden than you might otherwise have. But it's quite a complex business, right? It takes you a little bit to get your head around what it is they do and how it works. So again, they've seen really great results in embracing video as their sort of FAQ medium of choice. And so they can very quickly sort of explain how it works and take people through the journey of what they need to do in this very engaging, very compelling sort of video format. And it's been a huge success for them as a brand. Again, the amount of sessions in their stores has gone up, and 30% higher of people who get to the site actually adding, a product to their cart. And I think that's a really interesting point because, particularly on this example, you could imagine people getting to this website and feeling a little bit confused or unsure quite about, how it works. And actually by using a video to explain that, again, very quickly, sort of 30 seconds to a minute, we can't say for definite that's what's driving the more people adding things to their carts, but it must be helping, right? Because again, think about the experience of walking into a shop, and if you're confused with how it works or you sort of can't find what you're looking for, you're much less likely to buy something. And the same thing happens online. So what video can do is create that much more human experience and help people get to what they're trying to do on your site. The final point just to make about this before I talk about sort of how to use video to its full potential a little bit is it's really important that you think about your customer journey holistically. And we're big believers that video can improve your customer journey and can play a really important role. And like I've talked about, capturing, keeping and converting people's attention. But it's really important that as the person, as the marketer or as the business, what is the action that will lead them into the video, and what is the thing you want them to go and do after the video. Video on its own cannot necessarily do all these fantastic things. Video as part of a really well-planned, well-thought-out customer journey can absolutely be a game changer. But I think it's just important to remember that you're very clear on what is the desired next step you want somebody to take, and that you make that as easy as possible for them. It's something that's just always worth remembering. So just wanted to run through a few tips that we have for making, really professional quality videos, whether you've got absolutely zero experience of video, whether you have a little bit of experience of video, or whether, you do use quite a lot of video and you're just looking to sort of up your game a little bit. I guess there's lots of different sorts of businesses involved here. But the first one is not really about video at all or about technology. It's about your mindset. Go back to that slide I said before. I think it's happened quite quickly that video moved from being this very remote, expensive, complicated technology to suddenly being, a technology that lots and lots of businesses are finding ways to use in lots and lots of different ways. And particularly, the pandemic has accelerated that hugely. I think the CEO of Microsoft talked about sort of 3 years of digital transformation happening in 3 months, and we see that across video as well, right? Because everyone was obviously having to stay at home, many more brands and businesses and organizations started using video. So I guess the first thing, if you're not using any video, is to come to presentations like this, hopefully, think about how video can help you, and really start embracing that video is probably, well, it's certainly not as complicated, not as expensive, not as time consuming as you think it is. And like I'm hopefully showing, it's very, very powerful in being able to drive exactly the behaviors that most businesses want to do. So the first point is a mental point or a psychological point. Start thinking about video as part of your mix, and you're going to be surprised, I think, quite how accessible this technology is, and quite how powerful it is. The second thing, and again, this is particularly aimed at people who aren't doing a lot of video at the moment, is you don't need to start from scratch. So if you decide you're going to embrace video, you don't need to sort of sit down with a pad and paper, which just has the word video written on the top, and be like, right, what are we doing? Video is a tool, is a tactic to bring your business, to bring your products to life. And the great news is you've done most of the hard work already, right? If you have a business, you've got a visual brand, you may well have some assets like photographs or even some existing video content that you can use as part of the mix, which is obviously really, really helpful. You've got a story, you've got a way of communicating. A lot of the things that make for compelling video, you already have. And I talked about our tool called Vimeo Create, and you can see an image of it on the screen here. Vimeo Create also helps, right? So it creates templates for you. So let's say you want to run a sale or a Christmas deal, for example. We have templates where you can just sort of drag your images in, and it will very much, create something that looks and feels like a sales video, or like a Christmas, Christmas deal video. So not only do you have a lot of the stuff, the technology can help as well. You also, through Vimeo Create, get access to Vimeo stock. So let's say you're a restaurant and you're trying to make video for social media, there'll be stock video, really beautifully shot stock video you can use and sort of mix up into your video, which shows people eating, having a good time, wine glasses, whatever it might be. So the good news is that there's a lot that's already there, both in terms of the business you've built and that the technology can help with. So you're not starting from zero if you want to go down this direction. This is a bit of advice, which I think is probably the most common advice given to creatives. If you've ever done a storytelling course or anything like this, they always say this, right? Show, don't tell. And I think it's really important. Just because it's very common advice doesn't mean it's not very, very useful advice. And we often find that the best videos, the most engaging videos, are things that show off the value of a product, rather than just tell people what the value of a product is. So, for example, if you're a sort of outdoor clothing brand, yes, you can tell your customers or your potential customers that wearing these jackets will help you sort of go off and have adventures. But if you can show people off having adventures wearing the jackets, that's going to resonate much more with people. That's going to create much more of a sort of an emotional response from your viewers. And again, they're much more likely to remember it, and they're much more likely to act on it as well. So wherever possible, this is a really good principle to think about, which is show, not tell. A couple of sort of specific technical things. Sound is obviously a big part of video, but the way sort of the internet has developed is that basically sound does not play as standard. So if you think about social media, if you think about most websites you go to, you have to turn the sound on a video to actually get it. So yes, you may want to use sound, but you certainly shouldn't rely on sound. And more than that, you should design your video to work without sound, so people don't need to listen to the audio to understand what's going on in your video. And this comes down to captions, right? Nice, clear, concise captions, which put the right information across, which are easy to read and which stay on screen for long enough. We often say a good rule for that is that they should be on screen for the time it takes for you to read it twice. And if that's the case, most people would be able to sort of, adopt the information that you're trying to share and absorb it. But yeah, do think about that. If you're creating video, don't spend a ton of time on the sound, because a lot of people, particularly on those sort of product videos or social media videos, they're not going to be watching it with the sound on. So a good thing to think about. And linked to that, make sure your text is clear. It's amazing how often videos which you're watching with no sound, which have text on, and you can't really read the text. Here's an example of text done really well and text done really badly. So the top example, it's very clear. You can read the words, makes sense. It's on screen for long enough. The bad example at the bottom, when the designer first sent this to me, I thought that they hadn't put any text on. I was like, oh, yeah, I need to show some text. And she was like, no, it's on. It's just really bad. You can't read it. And if you sort of squint, you might be able to see that there are numbers there, but it's white on white, disappears too quickly. It's very, very small. This is an extreme example, but you do see stuff like this out in the wild. So, not only design for sound off, make sure your text is big and bold and legible and on screen for long enough. So that's sort of just a technical point. And then this one, right? This is about branding. Like I said before, you have a brand as a company, as a business, and there is no reason why your videos should just be another expression of that brand. So it's very confusing, I think. Occasionally you'll go to somewhere and people have used video, but the look and feel isn't quite the same look and feel as you get on the rest of the website, right? Or the tone of the copywriting or whatever that might be. So, do keep your branding on point. Think about the brand you're trying to put out in the world, and make sure that your video is capturing and communicating that same brand that you've obviously worked very hard on. Again, Vimeo Create, which I talked about before, has lots of sort of easy ways to change colors and fonts and just make sure that you can, match up the brand in your video to the brand on the rest of your website. But an important thing to think about. This is a really important point, which is that the great thing about video becoming much easier to do, take that example of the company that was making 6 videos a year and now makes 6 videos a month, is that you can make lots more videos and you can test and learn and you can sort of see what works. And that's really exciting, right? For 2 reasons. One is that, if you have a desired outcome, so let's say you're trying to get people to sign up to be a subscriber to a service, you can very clearly see how well is video driving that behavior. And then what you can do is, if it's not, you can very easily tweak your videos to see if, you can drive that behavior. Again, it's not about if a video is not working, you have to start from scratch. It's amazing how often a small change to the design or the pace or the words that you use on a video can suddenly take a video that's not performing and make a video really perform. We see that happening all the time. So the more you can test and learn, the more you can sort of information you can gather, the better you'll be able to deploy video in the ways you want for your business. But know what success looks like. There's an awful lot of data you can pull around sort of anything, right? But video is no different. Oftentimes we see people in there monitoring all of these numbers, 15, 20 data points, but you just end up sort of confused in a blizzard of numbers, right? What you need to be able to do is to say, this is the behavior that we're trying to drive. This is the number that shows us if we're driving that. And so this is what we're going to focus on. So that focus is really important. But linked to that point, again, creating one video, saying to use more video doesn't mean you have to create lots and lots of videos. Actually, if you create a few good videos, you can use them in lots of different ways. So again, the tools that we have, you're able to very quickly change the ratio on them so that they work on Facebook or on Instagram or on LinkedIn, right? That's a very easy thing to be able to do. And again, it's really interesting how a video that doesn't do very well on Facebook sometimes does very well on Instagram or LinkedIn. It's a really fascinating sort of thing to watch. So again, part of video being accessible is not just being able to make video, but tweak video and change it and use it in different ways. This thing that you can see on the screen here, this is a really nice thing. Whereas if you have lots of different products and you come up with a video for one of the products that you really like and performs well, you can actually just swap out your other products into that same template. So again, you're not having to start from scratch each time. You're just being able to use a video that works and that you really believe in lots of different ways to drive lots of different behaviors. So that's a game changer in terms of not having to spend a lot of time creating new video all the time. And I guess my final point is this. I talked at the beginning about video being a mindset, video being super powerful, video being the best way to capture, to keep, and to convert people's attention in marketing. I hope I've shown that video is much more accessible than it used to be, and that there are tools that Vimeo offer and other people offer, but video suddenly is a thing that is much more open to much more businesses and much more people. So the best advice I can sort of give you is jump in, go for it. Like try some video, push some video out on social, put a video on your website, start to get excited and get comfortable and get confident with this medium, because as I say, we are absolutely convinced it's, the future of business communication. It has an unbelievable potential to drive not only behaviors that you want, but real numbers, right? Real tangible results that grow businesses.